What up, L? What up, Lucky? Hope everybody having a blessed day. Waiting on the homie Alisha to pull up. She was actually more prompt than me. I was the one that took a little second to actually get on. What up, Jill? I didn't get a nap today. Slacking a little bit. But we're going to do a live talking about you're not crazy. You know what I'm saying? People not as successful as they claim. A lot of people capping out here. But I'm waiting on the homie Alisha to join. In the meantime, hope everybody's well. It was a productive day nonetheless, although I didn't get the rest that I needed. She definitely just texted me. Hope everybody's having a good day. Not sure what's going on. Give her a little bit. Yes, it's most definitely capping. No, for sure, man. And it's causing a whole bunch of issues out here. They're taking advantage of people's perfectionism, fear of missing out, fear of failure, all of these different things that they are taking advantage of, and it's activating within people. And it's making people feel like their life ain't good enough, or that they're not good enough, or that other people's grass is greener on the other side. In actuality, it's all just smoke and mirrors. I need to consistently start doing lives a little bit more often, which I will start doing. I'm gonna start figuring out one day a week in which I'm consistently going live. There go the homie right there. Go ahead and hit that request to join live. I'll bring you right up. Wow, very prompt. What up? What up?
Yo,
How are you doing?
I am phenomenal. How are you, sir?
Blessing and progressing. You know, every day above ground is a good one.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. What's
What?
good?
It's been a minute, man. What's been up with you?
I was just working,
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 working.
real estate, sales, all that good stuff.
I dig it.
hmm
Parenting.
Parenting,
That's
definitely
always
parenting.
you be in
Yes,
mom mode.
yes, yes. How's the little?
Oh, he's doing great. Getting big as heck, 2.5 now, but talking, um, bold as heck. You know what I'm saying? Fearless. Give me anxiety all the time, but little man's doing great. Love it.
It's the
What kind of
kids giving
thing,
me anxiety. It's crazy.
man? I try not to transfer my fear onto him or my anxiety onto him, but yo, he be pushing it sometimes. He just don't be factoring in consequences. Um,
Mm-mm-mm.
what kind of motivated you to want to do the topic today? That you're not crazy and they're not as successful as they claim.
Hmm. Well, it's not that. So, okay.
Or they're not doing as great as they claim.
Not all of them, right? Some people are really actually in this space and they're killing it. So I have been, in the sales space, and obviously I've been in this ecosystem of people for a couple years now. So I'm still fairly new to everything, but what I've realized is that there's a lot of people who, and this is a blessing from being on the sales side once again and being able to speak to different individuals. There are a lot of people who are struggling, who are going through a lot of things, um, and they're not open about it, right? Which I am a big advocate of, like keeping your private stuff private, right? Um, but on the other side of that, it almost seems as though everybody out here is making no less than 100 bands a month, and everybody out here is just, you know what I'm saying, like doing the most. Everyone's got everything together. No one's struggling. Everyone has a perfect family and all this other stuff. And it's just not like it's not. Don't always believe what you see, right? Some of it is marketing tactics. Some of it is just uh, it's a there's a lot of smoke and mirrors that are out here. And I'm not saying it's everybody because it's not. There are truly some individuals that have worked their way to the top and put in the sweat equity and done their thing, and they are extremely successful. And they are, you reap what you sow, and they are reaping their harvest.
And nothing
Um,
is always true about anyone unless we're
no,
talking about we breathe the air, we have blood in our body. So, that's almost a disingenuous comment by saying not everyone. Like we know, of course, not everyone, but that's completely ignoring all of the ones where we can
yeah,
clearly see
yeah,
that
yeah,
it
yeah,
is. So
yeah,
let's keep the
for sure.
conversation, I'm referring to the comment. Let's keep the conversation focused on what we're actually talking about and not derail it and all that stuff like that.
Yeah, no. And I mean, like, in terms of, I just want to make it known, and this is more so like this isn't an attack on anybody who is, putting out that lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? This is just more so of it's more of like an empathy based, like I'm speaking to the individuals who feel as though like they're overwhelmed or they're doing something wrong because things might not be panning out the way that they desire. Um, just to say, like, sometimes it's just not your season, and don't be misled to believe that because it seems as though everybody else is in their harvest, that you could very well still be in your seed time. And it doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. It doesn't mean that you're in a position of where like you've messed things up. It's just there's a reason for every season. So that's just it. Like don't get discouraged, don't feel like you're less than, don't feel as though you're doing something wrong. It's just it's just a season, right? And not
I agree
everybody else is
wholeheartedly.
in their harvest.
I agree
So yeah.
wholeheartedly. And it's just you know how to drive a stick?
What's the stick?
Like a like a stick
Do I
shift.
know how to drive a stick shift? No.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
Do I?
okay.
Not well.
I was fit in that category as well too, but I got the idea of it, the understanding. But the thing about a stick shift is that your gear determines your speed. And a lot of times with us, we look at other people going a certain speed and we're like, oh, I want to go that speed, or we start comparing ourselves based upon the speed that they're going, but we're not thinking about the gear that they're in. We're not thinking about the vehicle that they're using. We're not thinking
Mhm.
about the amount of time that they have been driving versus us. It's all these other factors. But the thing about a stick shift is that if let's just say you're in gear three and I'm just starting out in gear one, if
Yeah.
I just try to jump and go to gear three,
You're
the car is going to
gonna
stall
stall.
because you got to go through the proper sequence. You got to go through first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear. Once you get into fifth gear, now you're on that highway speed. Then you can able to floor it. But if you just try to, you see everybody else going highway speed and you're trying to do the same thing, or you're comparing yourself to everybody else who's going a different speed than you, then you're going to start to feel inferior. You're going to start to feel less than. The fear of missing out will start kicking in, like we were talking about. The fear of failure will start kicking in, or the desire to be a perfectionist might start kicking in. All these other things, but the driving force in you could just be based upon smoke and mirrors, like Alicia was talking about, a facade, an image that they are created that's not necessarily true. But you're basing your real life off of what do they say, like a person's highlight reel. And most of the time, it's not really a person's highlight reel because we don't really know a person's circumstances.
Mhm.
We don't know what they
That
went through to
part.
get it. We don't know if they really have it. We don't know their debt. We don't know their relationships, their quality of their relationships. We don't know their legal standings. We don't know their tax standings. We don't know all these other factors, but we're just seeing certain images and we're comparing our life to that, and it's making us feel inferior or small. So I agree wholeheartedly that we got to just be mindful of that and we got to watch the difference between perception and reality.
Facts.
Perception is, what we choose to take in, the information that we actually notice. but the reality is what's actually here.
Mm.
Now, the interesting thing is all these people that's watching this live, the reality is the words that actually coming out of my mouth. The interesting thing is though, everybody who's watching this can have a different perception about what I actually said or what actually happened. So perception
Mm.
isn't really true, but perception is what dictates it all. So we
Mm.
got to be able to distinguish between our perception versus what the actual reality is. And a lot of people can make us feel reality based upon being really good at dictating perception.
Yes. Yeah, 100% well said. Um, and one of the things that I found myself doing, and y'all know, my big thing is gratitude. Because I'm no different. And I found myself, in times like looking on the socials when I'm like bored, not paying attention. And I found myself like falling in like this rabbit hole. And I'm like, dang, like I could have sold X amount of homes, I could have made X amount of sales. And I'm like, dang, I haven't hit seven figures in sales yet. You know what I'm saying? And you can, and like comparison is a thief of all joy. But one of the things that I have been super intentional and disciplined about is counting my blessings and writing out my gratitudes, right? Like you take it back. And we call it, I'm part of a sales community, and he calls it taking inventory, right? Take inventory of where you are, how far you've come, right? As well as like what you've accomplished and not measuring forward.
Yeah.
Okay. It's amazing to have goals. Goals are essential, but don't measure yourself against those goals because those goals at the end of the day are still just an idea. So you want to measure yourself backwards from where you started. So when I just got started in real estate, I couldn't figure it out for the first year and I was wasting time. Versus now, I'm extremely intentional with my time. I'm a lot more proficient at what I do, and it's amazing. Like, am I on Selling Sunset? No, that's okay. I don't want to be on there. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I have made an impact. And the reality is that you don't have to live this extremely, or you don't have to broadcast this extremely lavish life to seem as though you're making an impact. You know what I'm saying? Like you making an impact in people's lives in real life is significant, right? And you're changing that one person's, you could very well change that one person's trajectory of life and literally give them hope. And the world doesn't have to know about it. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, I really, 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 it really sometimes irritates me that social media has created this ideology that everyone's opinion is relevant. And I'm like, it's not.
Right.
But the biggest thing for me is that you are allowed your opinion. And guess what? If that is your stance, that is amazing. And I love that for you. If that's your stance and you stand behind it and you have your principles and you have your truth and your belief as to why that's your stance, stand 10 toes down. But do not, for 2.3 seconds, find an argument against somebody else and feel that because they disagree with you that they're less inferior, or you start to call them names because they don't agree with your stance, instead of literally just sitting and respecting the fact that just like you have a stance, they have a stance as well. And we're starting to like deteriorate that within humanity, and it's causing so many problems. Like it is causing so many problems, it's causing so many fallouts between friends, between family. And it's just like one of the most beautiful things that we can do as human beings is allow each of us to keep our autonomy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to keep my autonomy by saying, these are my beliefs. This is the belief system that I have cultivated over the years, and this is serving me. But at the same time, while that's my belief system and it's serving me, I'm also going to respect the fact that you have your belief system and it's serving you. But we're more than welcome to have an intellectual conversation. And if I can add value and help make you better from where I'm at, that's amazing. Or vice versa. If you can do that for me, I'm open and receptive to that. But the last thing I'm doing is to go out and attack you for being a different individual and having a different perspective.
No, I think that that's great. And it's this concept called inside the box, outside the box. Shout out to Coach Crump for putting me on it. It's by the Arberger Institute. And basically what it is like you were talking about, like when we are inside the box we tend to look at people as like objects. We don't tend to see the humanity in people. So a lot of times when we're in conflict with an individual, either one person in that situation or both people are actually inside the box. But when we get outside of the box, we're able to see the humanity in people, and you're able to see that that person, although they have a different map of the world than you, their needs is just as important to them as yours are to you. So although y'all needs are different, just like you believe, and this is super intense for you, their needs is the exact same for them. But we don't, when we're in conflict with somebody, we don't see the humanity in somebody. We don't tend to see that them being a human with needs is equal to mine. We only see my needs. My needs need to get met. But being able to just see the humanity in other people tends to be able to help out a lot. So just respect the nervous system, like you said. I'm gonna respect your nervous system. You respect my nervous system. I respect your belief system. You respect my belief system. And another thing in regards to taking inventory, when we were talking about perception, perception is a reality, and most of us have, or we get triggered into these negative thought patterns and negative feelings by comparing ourselves to other people. And a thing that the brain does or the mind does, and we all do this, is we delete, distort, and generalize. So it would be so overwhelming for us to all process all the information that's going on, even right now. For those of you that's actually actively listening to me, to listen to me, you're not listening to the sound that's going on around you. You're not listening to the fan that's going on the AC, or cars going by, or animals that might be around, or just the sensation of your clothes touching your skin, or just all these other things that you could bring your awareness to, because we got a limited amount of ability to be able to process information. So we tune out everything that we deem unimportant, and we hyper focus in on things that we feel is important. How is this relevant to perception and what we're talking about? Because when we have our experiences throughout life, most of the time we tend to delete out everything that will make us feel good about ourselves, everything that will make us feel proud, everything that will make us feel grateful, everything that will make us feel happy, and we focus on all the stuff that's pissing us off. We focus on all the stuff that's making us literally feel like our life ain't nothing. That's what we
Mm.
focus on. It ain't the simple fact that we ain't got a reason to feel blessed. It's just the simple fact that we don't focus on it long enough for the feelings to generate in our bodies of feeling blessed. But what we do focus on long enough is the shit that pisses us off. We'll focus on that and keep replaying scenarios all day long and just keep making
Mm.
ourselves mad and mad and mad and mad. Or we'll replay the thing that we fear, the thing that we don't want to happen, the thing that we're worried about happening, the worst case scenario. We'll keep replaying that over and over again in our mind, and no wonder why it feels so real to us. But when we accomplish something good, we don't replay that over and over again in our mind with a lot of intensity. When people praise us or give us compliments, we don't replay that over and over again. A lot of our minds with intensity. We typically only do that to the negative things. So we got to be mindful of what am I deleting. Again, if you feel bad about yourself, you're deleting out everything that will make you feel good about yourself. So you need to bring your mind to, you need to bring awareness to all the things in your life that you have done well, that makes you feel good about yourself, that you have accomplished. If it's a picture, if it's a trophy, if it's a medallion, whatever it is, get that from out the attic, get that from out them shoe boxes, get that from under the bed, and hang that up all around you so you can stop deleting out all of the good things about yourself. I had one friend of mine who was just like, I'm a bad person, I'm a bad person. I do this, I do this, I do. And I was like, bro, but every time I see you, you got your daughter with you, bro. Like, you are an amazing father. And he literally deleted that out about himself. I had to literally bring that to his awareness. And once he brought it to his awareness, he's, I guess you are right. I guess I, but literally he would delete that out, and he would only focus on the things that he didn't like about himself. The things that people pointed out that said that you're not good, this is bad, this is bad. And that's what he hyper focused on. So we just want to be mindful what we are deleting.
No, facts. And I saw somebody put like, how do we like have that grounding within ourselves so that way we're not like we can overcome the humps of the disrespect from others. And I don't know if that was actually the question or if it was more so of a
I'm
statement, but
trying to
I'll treat it
find
like a
it.
question. It was a little bit up, but I would say this, right? And I find this so interesting. Like as you start to lean out in regards to the less attached you are in regards to the less attached you are to being right, the less affected you are by others. So let's say for instance, my hoodie's gray, right? And you come to me and you're like, Alicia, I like your red hoodie. And I look and clearly I know that it's gray. But I know that it's gray with so much confidence that you calling it red isn't going to bother me because I'm grounded enough to know that trust and believe that I know my colors
Like if I
to
called
know
you a
that
white
this is
girl.
right. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever the case is. Like if you speak on anything that isn't in alignment with my identity, it's not going to trigger me when I know what my actual identity is. Right? But the moment somebody is unconfident about something, if somebody speaks to that thing that they're unconfident about, you're automatically going to arouse. You're automatically going to trigger because you're not like they're already questioning it. So when you come in and you start to stir that water, now they feel like they have to fight you on it because they don't truly believe that it's a thing. And this can go into a number of rabbit holes, but I'm not going to go there. But what I am going to say is that another comment, I don't know who made it, but they were like, why are we like this? And I, in my opinion, I believe it's a number of things. Number one, it's the schooling, right? From the moment we entered elementary school or whatever, these are indoctrination camps. And if you don't believe it by now, like we just got to do better as people. They are indoctrination camps.
Agree.
And we are focused on, they are taught, and I see it with my son, they are taught immediately to focus on the things that they do wrong. So you got to imagine you're going through this for years, years. You're bypassing, you're overlooking everything you've done right. And they're like, look at that thing that you did wrong. You can get a 99 on a test, and they'll be like, look at that thing that you got wrong. Look at that thing. And they'll write it in red. Well, I think that's been canceled out now. So you have all those years, right, of indoctrination to focus on what you don't do right. Okay. And then the more schooling you've been exposed to, the more indoctrination you've received on top of the fact of like it's always easier to fall into a negative state, right? I can't think of, I think it's the law of entropy, but you don't bathe, right? If you don't bathe, you're not going to randomly start smelling good. You're going to stink. You're naturally going to go towards decay. If you have a garden, you leave it alone, it is naturally going to go towards decay. The reality is that anything that's worthwhile, right? It is harder, it takes a level of intentionality to do good, right? All it takes is ignorance to start to do bad. That's all it takes. If you ignore it, it gets bad. But it takes a level of intentionality to get smarter. All right. If you do nothing, you sit around, you do nothing, you're not going to get smarter. You're going to get dumber. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, that's just the reality behind it. So naturally, it's going to take, to your point, bringing about that awareness and saying, like, okay, this is what I'm choosing to do. Like, I am aware that this is happening, but I'm not going to take that for myself. I am going to intentionally move in this direction. Like, I'm not going to cuss this person out, even though that's the easiest thing for me to do. My body is naturally like, let's do this. But it takes a level of constraint to be like, you know what? I'm going to turn the other cheek and I'm
But
going
that also
to move.
ties into what you were talking about in regards to why people want to be perfect, this demand to be perfect because of what we're seeing on social media, where it's tied to the fear of vulnerability. It's hard for a person to say that I lack confidence in this moment. It's hard for a person to say that I'm dealing with this. So they're going to keep all that in and then they're going to blow up in those particular moments. They won't be able to walk away in those moments or be able to give grace or show patience in those particular moments. So it's like the fear of vulnerability because they want to perceive to be perfect because again they're comparing themselves to what they're seeing on social media or media, TV or friends, trying to keep up with the Joneses, parental expectations, regardless of what it is. So it's this need to try to be perfect, and I think that that's something that we need to address as well. But again, I think that a lot of that is fueled by people not being okay with being vulnerable, being honest about where I really am in life, what I'm really dealing with, what my real internal experience is, what I'm really feeling, what my real circumstances is, whether it's financial, whether it's romantic, whether it's parental, regardless of what it is, just being honest about what you're actually dealing with again, instead of just because of the social media image, making it seem like that we got to have everything perfect, that every area got to be a 10 out of 10. Now, we should strive to have every area be a 10 out of 10, but the reality is that's not what it is. So we should be able to be okay with saying, you know, financially wise, I'm not where I desire to be. Can I actually get help? As opposed to just trying to project like you got it all together. And then therefore, now you closing yourself off to help. In order to
Yeah,
receive genuine help, you got to expose the simple fact that you actually need it. And then the people will
uh,
actually appear to help you. That's why when they say that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
100%. And I mean, I think it's just we're in a society to where if you come out and you're vulnerable, like I don't believe in being vulnerable on like social media unless you're in that brand space to where like it's gonna make a significance. Like you have to be, in my opinion, right? You need to be a super grounded individual to go out and be vulnerable. If you are still prone to being attacked and that's going to trigger you, it's going to keep you up at night, and then you're going to sit here and you're going to fall into like this deep depression because people don't like you, don't do it. Like, don't be vulnerable because people are sitting around, they're waiting. Like, they're waiting for an opportunity to project. And if that's not something that you understand, you will be affected by it. So I do not advise anybody to like step out on faith and just be super vulnerable if you are not grounded with who you are and what you bring to the table or anything like that. Um, the other thing, problem is people aren't even vulnerable with those closest. And you know what? That's I do concur with that. I will speak to that as an actual individual. I struggled with being vulnerable with a lot of people. But that stemmed from childhood, and it took me sitting down and doing that self-reflection to realize that I embedded a fight or flight system. Like I accepted that into my nervous system from childhood. So I naturally couldn't communicate with people to be vulnerable with them because subconsciously I told myself I was like, if I communicate, it's not safe because I'll be told I need to leave, right? So for me, vulnerability meant that I was gonna have to figure out where I was gonna lay my head for the night. So I automatically wrote to myself that it wasn't safe to communicate. So for those, there are a lot of individuals who are super afraid of being vulnerable, and they put on this tough exterior because there is a level of trauma, whether it's recognized or not. Their body is still going to do what it needs to do to protect itself. Like your mind is such an impeccable machine. It will do any and everything to protect you. And it's so phenomenal. Like even to your own like demise, it'll be like, I need you to be safe.
No,
Your
no
mind is
facts.
literally like, I want you to be safe. Don't do that thing. Like it's just trying to protect you. But until you're like, hey, you know what? I got this. Like I got this. Then it's like, okay, you know, and then there's a new thing, and then there's like a new realm, like, oh no, like stay here, like we've been safe here, this has been good for us, and then you know it's just always breaking through those floors.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. And Army Butterfly '08, I definitely agree. You do not have to be perfect, and it's good to instill that in your kid. This open-minded and verbal exchange that I perceived in your IG live session is one of the more insightful and intelligent sessions I have seen. We appreciate that, brother. Definitely appreciate that for sure. Um, and so in regards to when the comments saying that a lot of people aren't even vulnerable with their closest friends, like she said, most of that is learned behavior. It's not an intentional thing. So we gotta one recognize that when it comes to our friends and even ourselves, that like she said, unless you grew up in an environment in which it was demonstrated in your household, healthy emotional expression, then our childhood solutions become our adulthood problems. Like Alicia stated, when she had experiences with being vulnerable in her younger years, it resulted in pain. So to not have that pain anymore, she developed a solution, emotional suppression. Now, as a child, that is a solution. But then when you become an adult, now that childhood solution becomes our adulthood problems. So we all need to have grace when we either ourselves or when we experience other people that have these learned behaviors or conditioned in them, whether it's through your parental figures, whether it was through peer pressure, whether it was through societal norms, regardless of how it actually got embedded in us. Very few of us chose our self identity. Very few of us chose this is the personal quality I'm going to have. This is a personal quality I'm not going to have. I'm not. I'm going to suppress my emotions. Really, of those are conscious choices. And most of those are limiting beliefs that we form in our very, very young childhood. And because kids are great observers, but terrible
Mm,
interpreters, and our brains aren't fully developed as a child, we tend to come up with very limiting beliefs. And those beliefs of I need to be silent, or this equals pain, or this happened because of me. And we start to form all of these things of how we got to behave in order to have be safe in this particular environment. So that's why many people are that way. They're not choosing to be that way. So you got to have grace. So the solution to that, when you come across friends that are not necessarily vulnerable, one, you got to be able to have sensory acuity to be in tune with this particular friend. You got to be able to recognize patterns. I have certain friends that when they just go absent, I know that they are spiraling down, most likely engaging
mm,
in a lot of vices, and they're really starting to feel a lot of shame and guilt. And that's what's causing them to isolate and not want to be on social media, not want to reach out and not want to talk. So I know, damn, it's been a couple of weeks. I ain't talked to this particular person. Let me reach out
mm,
and call him and make sure he actually You got to be in tune with your actual loved ones, because certain people, again, they're not trying to emotionally
mm,
suppress. If
mm.
they knew how to emotionally express themselves, and if they felt like it was safe, they would do it. They just don't know how to actually do it, because kids don't become what you instruct them to become. They become what you demonstrate. So what was demonstrated for them was emotional suppression. But if they had somebody that could show them how to effectively express themselves and be vulnerable and it be safe for them, they would actually do it. So give them actual grace. So just, you got to most likely be in tune with that particular friend. Then you got to create a safe space where they feel comfortable. And it's not just a one-time thing. And then you get frustrated because they're not opening up to you. That's the quickest way to make sure that they don't be vulnerable with you. It's a dance, it's a game. You got to learn their particular nervous system. You got to learn the words that actually triggers them. You got to learn that sometimes it's not just a behavior or a word that could trigger a person. It could be a time of the year that could actually trigger a friend. Maybe this time of the year is when their parent died, or when their parents actually got divorced or separated, or whatever it is. Or maybe this person was sexually abused around this particular time, or a major divorce or breakup, or it could be a lot of things that makes it a seasonal actual trigger. It's so many things that can
Mm.
impact a person's psyche and their particular behavior. One, we just got to have grace. Two, be in tune. And three, we just want to make sure we create a safe space where they feel safe talking to us. Don't force them to actually communicate, but when they want to, make sure they feel safe. And that will cause them to feel vulnerable enough to come to you. One of my friends says he only feels comfortable talking to four people on this earth. But as soon as he calls me, I don't even have to say anything. As soon as I answer the phone, he'll just start crying. He'll literally just start crying because he don't feel safe crying anywhere else. But with me, he feels comfortable crying. So I don't even gotta say, as soon as I say hello, just straight tears, like snot tears, all types of, because it's a safe space.
And I will go because I saw somebody said, "Is it ignorant to stay in that space, in that zone?" And I'll speak to it from this standpoint. Hmm. I'm gonna give a double entendre, if you will. So for one, you have to make that decision in regards to, once again, knowing yourself. Because like, and Chris, I'm gonna go against you just a little bit. You don't have to. Like, you don't have to be that person for that person if it's causing you to be drained. Like, if you do not have the capacity to pour into somebody who is in that space, it just is what it is. Like, if it's gonna take away from what is serving you, and you don't find, like, if it doesn't make sense to you, you don't have to, right? But if you do care and love that person, like, I validate all of the points that Chris has, right? But you do have to, once again, take inventory of who you are as a person. I'm a major empath, right? So I only got so many solution oriented conversations in me, right? So when you come to me and you got a lot, I'm like, okay, cool, let's work this out. But mind you, there are also a lot of narcissistic, manipulative individuals that are out here. And if you are the type of person that people know cares a lot and you're an empath, like, they will cling on to you. And they're not looking for any solution. Like, energy vampires are real. There are individuals that will be attracted to the aura that you give, because we are all energies, we are all spirits, right? Your light your energy that you bring into a room, especially if you're one of those captivating individuals, like if you are one of those people where people come up to you and they're like, I don't know, it's just something about you just makes me wanna, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm drawn to you. You have to be careful. The same way that there are individuals who truly need that to be able to come to you and you can expose them and increase their awareness. There's also individuals who will be attracted to you, but they're looking to draw whatever it is that you have and drain you. And their intentions are not to elevate themselves. So it's being mindful and having that spirit of discernment. Um,
I agree
and the,
wholeheartedly too. Remember
mhm,
your next point. But I agree wholeheartedly with that. And to add to that, you can't give somebody something that you don't have. So I'm not referring to people that's not in an emotional space to be able to be in tune with a person. I do feel that you should reach out to people to see whether they have the emotional capacity to be there for you before you just unload on them.
yeah,
Me speaking from a space of this is kind of like my area, mental and emotion. So it's like I really don't really be in negative like spaces and all that like that. So like I really like mentally and emotionally, if something's bothering me, I get to it and I like feel good. So I'm typically in a good space to reach out to people. And I'm really typically good. And I also feel like it's part of my life calling to educate, heal, and empower. So I'm also good at pulling people out of those particular spaces. But I agree wholeheartedly because I do have strong boundaries. I believe that it
yeah,
doesn't pay to respect a person that doesn't respect themselves. And if you're not, I can't want it more than you want it. So if you're not actually doing the work, I fire clients and people pay me thousands of dollars. I will fire you if you are not doing the work. I'm not a person that just want to take your money and then we just get on a call every single week and all that stuff like that. And you just keep ruminating about the same problem over and over and over and over. Like she said, that is draining to me at
hmm
least. But
hmm
when it's person that deeply wants
yeah,
change, that's when I'm actually fueled up because it's tied to my purpose to educate, heal, and
hmm
empower. But that's something I did have to learn is to distinguish between those that almost get like to get attention from their
yeah.
trauma in their versus the people that's really in pain that's seeking to get out and all that. And it's like if you are really in pain and you are highly motivated to actually change, I'll work with you. If you just a person that just want to talk about your problems, then I'm like, yo, you want to do the work, and I'm trying to wrestle with you to get you to do the work to actually change you, then that'll probably be the only time you talk to me. So I agree wholeheartedly with you. No cap.
Absolutely. And that's what we're gonna do. And you see what I'm saying? Like we can do this. We can go back and forth and have that space to be able to say like, okay, this was your perspective, this is how I feel about it, and it still be healthy. And I don't know what I did with my other headphone, but whatever. So one of the other things that I do want to bring to people's attention is the space that we're in regards to I am all for self love, right? I believe that you should date yourself. I believe that you should do all the things and all that great stuff. And I believe in boundaries. And I do. I'm such a fan of that. What I am not a fan of is people utilizing the term self love as a way to not take accountability. And that is something that I am seeing time and time again in this space. You could, especially, I'm so sorry, if you guys are dating, like dating, the dating scene, I believe why the dating scene right now is so much more toxic than it's ever been before is because people are walking into this space where there is zero accountability. And when somebody speaks to them to hold them accountable, they say, this is self love, this is a boundary, you can't
Or you get
talk to
called a
me like that.
narcissist.
Yes, or you get called a narcissist because that's the term that we're utilizing for 2024. And it's the reality is this. If you cannot speak to somebody in a way that is loving and not attacking and ask them to take inventory and awareness of their actions and actually safely let them know how you're feeling and how they're making you feel and they can't reciprocate with an intellectual conversation, then you were and they say, oh, this is self-love, I don't need to deal with this, whoop whoop whoop, it's 2024, okay, next. That is a hedonistic type of mindset. They
Facts.
see themselves as a god. They see themselves as a person that doesn't need to be accountable or take into consideration anybody
Especially those
outside of
people
themselves.
that pride themselves on setting boundaries, but then when I ask them how well can you take a boundary, then it's it was like, oh, so yeah, you want to beat your chest on the fact that yeah, you set all these boundaries, but then when somebody try to set a boundary with you, you don't want to respect nobody's boundaries. I had to learn this one time because I think you might know my sleeping patterns is very unorthodox. I might have texted you at a random time and all that stuff like that. I remember I hit my therapist up at like 3:30 in the morning once. It was a crazy time, and he responded back, "Please don't contact me before 8 a.m." And I remember like looking at it, and I remember feeling like, nigga. Like that's the first, if I'm honest, that's the first thought that went through my head was nigga. Like, and then I had to just check myself like that's really just him setting a boundary. I set boundaries all the time with people, so
Mm,
it's like,
mm.
okay, let me just accept, be on the receiving end of what I dish out all the particular time. But I remember I actually had to check myself because I remember him saying, "Hey, don't contact me before 8 a.m." And like we still cool to this day. We still talk all the time, but we had to talk that through. He was like, "Oh, it ain't no disrespect. It ain't no, but I just don't, you know what I'm saying? I'm on my bike runs and doing all this other stuff in the morning, my spiritual things. So I just don't do no work before." And I'm like, "No, it's all good. I respect that." And all. But if I'm honest, my initial reaction was, "How dare this nigga say that to me?" Like, so it is a challenge to actually receive a boundary. So it's not just enough to set boundaries. You got to be able to receive them as well from the people that you're setting them with.
100%. And one of the things that I would definitely say is that you have to extend grace,
They want to
right?
know if you're
And
talking about somebody you know. Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah. So she said it. She said it without saying it. Yes, that was a good question. Whoever asked it.
I just been seeing it. You know what I'm saying? I've been
That's
seeing it
funny
in
as
the
hell.
space. I've been seeing it in the space. But it's like it's one of the things that I've realized is with those boundaries, right? You also have to be okay if somebody doesn't want to abide by those boundaries, and you have to be good with what's on the other side of that, right? So,
Facts,
Chris,
facts.
let's just say we decide to talk, right? And I say, hey, um, I would like it if you text me at night or whatever as a nightcap and just said good night, right? And I just say like, hey, that just makes me feel like I don't know. That's just one of the things that I like from my person. And if you're like, no, I have to be okay with that because guess what? That is me allowing you to keep your autonomy. If you're like, hey, that's just not something I do, and that's not really something that I'm willing to compromise on. Like, I ain't about to text you. You know what I'm saying? I can't be mad at you because once again, that is you keeping your autonomy. But at the same time, I also reserve the right to move in a different direction to be in alignment. Right. So
Yeah,
there's a book,
facts.
and I think I've mentioned this book before. It is
If the
called
N word bothers you, you might as well get off this particular live because I'm my authentic self, and the N word comes out of me sometimes intentionally, but throughout this live, it was definitely unintentionally. But I will say it again. So if it bothers you, we appreciate the time that you were here, but I will throw you the pieces. I'm sorry, Felicia, or Alicia, right back at you. I was
oh
thinking
no, you're
bye, Felicia, when I did this, and I said
oh
Felicia, but I was thinking of too many different things. My fault.
no, you're good. But I'm saying like you get to the book that I was mentioning is called The Mastery of Love, and one of the things that they said was that the perfect relationship is between a man and his dog, right? Because a man never expects a dog to do anything outside of being a dog never expects a human to do anything outside of being a human. And what happens is when it comes to human, we might look at an individual and be like, oh, this person is portraying this to me, but I want them here, right? It's almost like getting a dog and then turning around and saying, I wish this dog would move instead of just going to get a cow. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like allowing, and obviously this doesn't speak to the individuals who put on a fake facade. Um, but in regards to once you start seeing the signs, and it's known, and back me up, Chris, but people can only hold up a facade for so long. I think the average is usually about 60 to 90 days, right?
Yep.
So
And that's
once
if you don't
you
live with them.
yeah, facts. And that's Like, once you start seeing those signs as not in alignment, like, communicate that. But then if it's not respected on the other side of it, be okay with detaching yourself and knowing that you're going to save yourself a lot of headache, especially when it comes to like relationships. But just know that like you're good and don't take it personal. And this is definitely coming from somebody who is like, I've been dating and there's been, individuals who might not be in alignment with what I have going on. And at first, there's like this initial, like, why would you not just work with me on this? Like, am I not of value? And then I have to step back and detach and not take it personal and say, you know what? They're a whole human being before they ever met me. And if that is the lifestyle that is serving them, then I have to respect that. But I love myself enough to go and be in alignment with somebody who I am also, you know what I'm saying? That it's not going to be forced. I hope
No,
that was
that
helpful.
made perfect sense. And yes, so it's called personality management. We typically all do this when we first get into a relationship, where it's just like you really, and it's an unconscious thing. People don't intentionally do this, but you project the qualities, the attributes, the actions, the behaviors that you feel this person that you're engaged with would really like.
Hmm.
And it's not typically until you get into something like a long-term commitment with this person, or you feel like very comfortable, like they're not going anywhere, that your shadow tends to come. And it's the shadow a lot of times that ruins relationships. It's them triggers that's in there. So yes, personality management. That's why you got to be mindful, because we also got a cognitive bias that's working against us called the halo effect. The halo effect is why first impressions matter so much. So it's basically um like not not the halo effect, but the primacy effect. So the primacy effect is why first impressions matter so much. So when a person gives you either a first good impression or a first bad impression, that will tend to outweigh anything else that they do. So from
Mm,
there, because a first impression will determine whether you like a person or whether you dislike them. Then
mm,
once you like them or dislike them, then we got other cognitive biases that's either working for us or against us. Once you like something, then it's literally a cognitive bias where it colors how you see this person. You don't see their flaws anymore. Or if you do see their flaws, you start rationalizing their flaws.
mm,
Now, if the first impression is you don't like this person, then on the opposite end of that, you start activating the hating or disliking tendency, and you start only seeing this person's flaws. And then when a person starts to do good, you rationalize it like how they do Trump. Well, the only reason he did it is because he trying to get out of tax debt, or he ain't trying to go to jail, or he ain't trying to. So we'll do that. So you just gotta be mindful of it. Um, and then boundaries aren't really about controlling another person. Boundaries, like you were talking about, is about controlling myself, controlling you. So I will set the boundary, hey Alicia, I don't like when you elevate your voice at me. And you might
mm,
just be like, but that's just how I was raised, and that's just how we do it. I don't mean nothing by it. Da, 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 da." And I'm like, I understand. I'm not trying to tell you, you know what I'm saying, how to go about. I'm just telling you how I live. People don't talk to me like that. So if you choose to start elevating your voice, I'm about to just remove myself from this particular situation. And
mm,
so if she's naturally just talking, I'll just remove myself from the situation. I won't say, lower your voice. I won't say, stop talking to me like that. I won't say, I just remove myself from the particular situation, because we train people how to treat us by what we tolerate. And so if we are tolerating certain things, even if you're chastising, you're still training a person that that's really the best way to go about, as opposed to just removing yourself. And now there's not, because it takes two to tango. If you would move your ingredients from y'all recipe of whatever confrontation y'all usually start, if you remove all your ingredients from that recipe, then it's no longer that same consistency. It's no longer that same outcome. Whatever that cake is, it's no longer that particular flavor. And then you start realizing that something else shows up. So again, a boundary isn't about controlling that person. A boundary is about controlling yourself. And then another thing in regards to the personality management with relationships is that so many times we tend to build relationships on the wrong foundation. We will talk about sexual attraction or physical attraction. And then once we got this attraction, then we get attached from that particular attraction. Then from that attraction, then we try to force a relationship onto it. But the relationship always fails because conflicting values. But we never investigated the values to begin with, because we form the relationship off of either physically being attracted to this person or sexually being attracted to this person. We didn't think about values. We didn't think about whether they match our future. We didn't think about, whether they are going to be able to be a safe space for you to express your emotions. You didn't think about whether they're the type of person that can be held accountable and corrected themselves. You didn't think about whether the type, if this is going to be a person that gets down on himself at the first sign of luck. You didn't think about whether this person, how he was going to be when he got money and when he got successful. You didn't think about how he's going to be once he experienced the death. We didn't think about person through different areas of life. Again, we just got physically attracted or sexually attracted. Then we rode that out until we got attached. Then once we get attached, now we like, oh, we boyfriend and girlfriend. But we fall out because, oh, you doing this or oh, you doing that. I'm not cool with that. But if we would have built a foundation on seeing if that aligns first, if our values align, if we are moving towards the same thing, if we're moving away from the same thing, if we see if that aligns first, a lot of times then the physical and the sexual attraction can build from there. And a lot of times that's a safer relationship. But if we do the opposite, try to have the foundation be physical and sexual attraction, that's a recipe for bedrock.
No, 100%. I concur. And one of the things that I feel um, would be helpful, because one of the things Myron says is that there should be, you shouldn't have shoulds for people. You know what I'm saying? So I've been more intentional about that. But one of the things that I personally have found helpful is allow yourself a season of isolation. And in that season of isolation, become clear on, to your point, like those foundational building blocks, right? Like, how do you idealistically want to be treated when you are in a relationship with somebody? Like, how does that person need to come across? What are the things that are non negotiables for you as an individual, right? Whether that is something on a religious standpoint. And I mean, once again, you get to keep your autonomy. So for me, like one of my big things is like I personally, and I don't have any offenses towards anybody who has a different religion or anything like that. Like I'm well beyond that as an individual. But for me, what serves me is like I need to be equally yoked with the person that I am with. And that's a non-negotiable, right? That doesn't mean that when I meet somebody and if they're like Muslim or Buddhist or whatever the case is, I'm not going to be disrespectful to them. I'm not going to try to convert them. I'm just going to say, for me, we are unequally yoked. That does not make you lesser of a person, but that's just a non-negotiable for me, and that's a building block, right, for me. But what happens is that a lot of people are so afraid of that season of isolation that they get bombarded with distraction, especially when it comes to social media, and you start accepting ideologies that you didn't develop for yourself,
You
right?
settle for
So
what you think you can have instead of going for what you really want.
yes, 100%. 100%. Or you create this false reality based off of what you've seen, right? Like, not every dude, like, I just saw something the other day and it was like a gender reveal, and it was a gender reveal with like a G Wagon. And I was like, oh, okay. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, sheesh. But there is probably, and it depends on like how malleable you are in your mind, but somebody could truly believe and accept that into their identity. Like, oh, I need this man to do a gender reveal with a pink or a blue
Hey, yo, you
G-Wagon,
are
bitch.
not lying. The expectations out here is fucking crazy. Like, and look, somebody about to unfollow too because, oh, he said the F word. Yes, brother, I'm sorry. Like, I am a nigga at heart. I am just educated. But yes, I'm sorry. So don't judge me. Charge it to the game. Charge me to my head, not my heart. But yes, they got unrealistic expectations that are crazy out here. So you're not lying.
No, 100%. And it's just like, when you sit down and you say, okay, but even more than saying, how do you want to be treated? You have to, and this is going to be a stinger, you have to ask yourself, what, or what is the type of person that I need to become in order for the type of person that I'm looking for to find me attractive?
Because they want
You
something
know what I'm
too.
saying?
Facts.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like, what are you bringing to the table to then be able to say, like, okay, I want a person who is I don't know, for some women, it's just like, I want a man who's gonna pay the bills and tell me that I don't have to work. Okay, great. But what are you bringing to that man in regards to peace to where it makes sense for him to make that investment?
And
Because
do
I
you
feel
really
like
want
relationship,
that?
do you really want that?
Do
Right?
you know
And it
what that
depends on the
do you
person.
know what that is? Like, because certain people who live that experience be like, this housewife, because a real life housewife is work. I don't know if y'all got to stop watching that Housewife of Atlanta stuff where y'all just go shopping every day and do all that other stuff like that. A lot of times, a housewife is work.
I mean, a
Family's work. You know, as a mom,
household is
kids
work,
is work.
period.
Yeah, kid is nigga. I pass out at 8 o'clock when I have my son. I have my son half of every week. Putting him to bed, I tend to fall asleep, and then I just wake up at midnight like, oh damn, I didn't even mean to go to bed, but. What? So yes, I changed my perspective once me and my son's mom separated and I started getting my son half of every week. And I'm just like, yo, working 60 hours a week is cake compared to taking care of a child full time. That shit is serious. Like, I ain't
Yeah,
gonna
imagine
care.
doing both. Um,
That's basically what
but
I'm doing
yeah,
now.
no,
Yes, that
it's
shit's crucial. Like,
but yeah, like going back to it, it's just identifying what those values are. And then once you have those values, ask yourself, where did I get this value from? Was this something that I cultivated, or was it something that was given to me based off of what I've seen from when I was younger, or from a societal standpoint, right? Because sometimes it's like people don't people don't do that all the time in reality. Or are you willing to sit down and like really stick it out until you get exactly what you want? Because sometimes that's just a longer season, you know what I mean? And you have to
facts.
be cool with that. But it's just you have to figure out like what your non-negotiables are. And then once you establish what those non-negotiables are, identify and take accountability for yourself. Have you healed enough to be able to handle somebody like that? Or are you subconsciously going to push them away because you're not, your identity isn't receptive to that type of love? And unfortunately, that was a reality for me. I wasn't receptive to the love that I desired. I knew how to give it to everybody else, but I did not trust myself to receive it. And
Mm,
that was a tough conversation that I had to have with myself, but I sat in isolation and I prayed and I did what I needed to do. But I was also open to the idea that what I had done in the past wasn't beneficial to who I was now, like who I am now, or who I desire to be in the future. And that's the reality of it, is like you have to be willing to say, I am not perfect. And there are things that I need to be accountable for. And maybe some of the things that I was doing and some of the ways that I handled things in the past are no longer serving me. And it's pushing away the blessing that I claim that I desire.
facts. And for me, it's a huge red flag for any woman that or any person that's always blaming their ex for the reason why the relationship failed. What did you do? If it's always that person, that person, that person, let me tell you, what did you contribute? Can you take a little bit of accountability? But if it's always that person, I don't go near that type of stuff. And then when you said you gotta be patient and sit down for a second, once you be clear on who your mate from heaven is, what you actually desire. Once you become clear on that, I give the analogy of buses. Once you get on one bus, you have no access to be on any other bus. You can be on only one bus at a time. So if you get on this one bus because you're entertaining this one person because they got your attention physically or sexually, or you know how a girl say, he made my stuff tingle, my coochie tingle, all this other stuff like that. That'll get a girl to go just off of that. Your little stuff start thumping. Now y'all over here feeling some type of way. And now y'all about to give this guy
I'm
some
gonna
pay
leave
for some
live,
bugs
y'all. I'm
because
gonna
of that.
leave live. I'm gonna go get some
But
water. You can
so
keep talking.
now you entertaining this dude and you own this bus, but now 15 minutes later, because the bus comes every 15 minutes, now your mate from heaven actually pull up. But because you entertaining this person, now you all the way on the whole other side of town. And you missed your mate from heaven because you wasn't patient enough to sit at your dang bus stop until your mate from heaven showed up. Because you just trying to jump at anything you see because again, your stuff tangle. That's why I tell any lady that I'm involved with, look, we go periods of time where it's semen retention for me, but you know what I'm saying, we not having sex, period. Because I need to know that both of us can feel sexually charged and choose not to do anything. Because to act like that you ain't gonna be, it's both what billions of dudes out here. To act like you're not about to be somewhere and your stuff just thump. Like if you don't know how to have your stuff just thump and then be able to overcome the urge, I can't mess, I can't mess with you. That is reality. Like, so you gotta have periods of sexual fasting in men and women. Y'all gotta do it together as couples. That's the only way you can trust that when they are apart from you, that you are naive if you think that they're never going to see another person that's not physically or sexually attractive. Just like you are naive if you think you never going to come across another person that's physically or sexually attractive. So both of y'all need to know that y'all can be sexually aroused and choose to overcome it. Y'all only going to know that if y'all fast together, if y'all abstain together for periods of time. Otherwise, I ain't gonna trust that your stuff can thump and you gonna be able to, cause I know when your stuff thump around me, you can't keep your hands off of a brother. So shoot, you gotta know that like she could really, really be aroused and control herself. Just like ladies, y'all wanna know that a man